Welcome to HortTube. My name is Jim Putnam. This is the Sunday garden question and answer video that's going up on a Tuesday. Normally I do these on Sundays, and I'll get back to that in January. If you want to ask questions down below, the second Sunday in January will be the first one of these. The first Sunday in January is the Subscriber Sunday video, which is this coming Sunday. That's where subscribers send in photos of things in their yard that they're proud of. If you're interested in sending in photos for that, the email address is right here. Just label your email subscriber photos or something like that. If you send me anything going forward here this week, they may not make it into this month's, but they'll be in February's if they're not in January's. I do have a lot of photos from December, which is kind of surprising. Really, usually slows down a lot during that time. There's actually a good amount of photos for that video this coming Sunday. I went on a very long trip. I was said I might do a question and answer with my son, and we just didn't have time. I was 2 weeks on the road. Those of you who follow me on Instagram could have followed along with those travels. We went all the way out to Arizona. I went to 5 national parks. Then I spent Christmas in Connecticut, and so there was an 8-day span that I was in 15 states and the District of Columbia. So I've had quite a bit of traveling this month. I've come back home to the landscape, which actually looks great. There was a little cold while I was gone, but not much. I came back and got a ton of broccoli. Actually took that to Connecticut for Christmas, and so overall, yard looks good for the first winter. Of this landscape. A little barren here and there because I did so many annuals this year, but I'll have those things filled in pretty quickly. Okay, one other thing before I start on questions, other than the crazy trip, but definitely, like I say, follow me on Instagram, and you could have seen all of those adventures. I do have consultations available, and they're linked down below these videos. I haven't set it. I've been doing it for the last 3 or 4 months, and lots of you have signed up for consultations, and I've met lots of you that way on Zoom over the last few months, but I just haven't set it at all. But it is linked down below, and if you're interested going towards spring and you got big projects going on and you got questions about it, maybe I can help out. Hopefully I can help out. That's kind of the purpose of it. So far, I've been able to help most people, I think. And like I say, I've enjoyed meeting some of you, so thanks a lot for that. Okay, let's get to some questions. One of the comments I had from on the last Q&A video was that I should do a Q&A with Bree Arthur. They were interested in that. I'm actually doing one bigger than that. We're actually starting a channel together, and our goal is to put one video a week up during 2020. I doubt that will end up happening. She's super busy, and I'm super busy, but when we can, we're going to put up videos. It's going to be different than turning on a camera and acting like an expert. We both of us would like to have a channel where we interview some of our friends and have more. The tour video I did at Dr. A's house down in Athens, we're going to have similar videos to that. Our actual first video is going to be at the North Carolina Botanical Garden, and we're interviewing some folks there, talking about winter interest plants at the Botanical Garden with people at the Botanical Garden. Our second video is on camellias, and rather than the two of us turning on a camera and just running our mouths about camellias, which we could, I grew camellias for years. You know how many camellias I have in this yard. She worked at Camellia Forest. She has an incredible camellia collection, unusual camellias, and she just taught a class for J.C. Ralston Arboretum on camellias. So, I mean, we have some camellia. We could turn on a camera and just geek out about camellias, but what we're actually going to do is go to friends of ours' houses with incredible collections. We're going to go to the Cape Fear Botanical Garden, which has an incredible collection of camellias, and we're going to do just kind of meatier pieces and show you some interesting gardens, and it'll be mostly garden tour based, so I'm excited about it. Hopefully it pans out. I would imagine that it'll be. Once we put the first video up, I'll tell you about the channel and that kind of thing. Hopefully you guys will go over and subscribe and like those videos. Hopefully. We'll see how it goes. You never know when you're starting something new. Okay, let's see. Somebody asked me about vegetables that they could overwinter in the garden, but they didn't tell me where they live. So that obviously has a lot to do with this. If you're in zone 5, there's probably not a lot unless you had a greenhouse space or heated space that you could overwinter. By the time you get to 6B, you can start to think about things like kale and collards, and my broccoli over there will continue to produce little side pieces for a while. I've got I've got peas, arugula, kale. I'm looking at it while I'm talking. What else do I have? Let's see. I said broccoli, collards, arugula, kale. I've still got some other leafy vegetables. It's only been in the middle 20s, so my other lettuces and things are still looking good over there. So there's lots of things. Let me see if I wrote anything else down. Peas. I don't know if I just mentioned peas, but can be overwintered. By the time you get to zone 7, 8, 9, most of that stuff, you can get stung here or there, but most of it will carry through the winter and do just fine. I saw Bree not that long ago put up a video. She was just planting broccoli in November and December. Okay. Somebody said, I've got a video on my channel for Forever Goldie Arborvitae, and they see it with different names. And that plant is under a couple different names in the trade. This is one of those things that's going on that there's a lot of renaming of plants going on, and it is kind of strange. But there are also several other cultivars too that look similar to Forever Goldie, but most of them are going to grow pretty similar. I've actually got a new one planted in the front bed corner in this house. It's unnamed. It's a new variety. It's not going to even be released for a couple of years, but it's a smaller growing Forever Goldie, similar to Forever Goldie, but it's smaller and slower growing. But again, yes, there is some unfortunate renaming of plants going on in the trade right now, and I don't think that will change. Somebody asked me about this Laura Petalum that's over. I wanted to know what the purple plant over my shoulder is. This is a Laura Petalum, zone 7 to 10 blooms. This is a red flowering variety. It'll bloom maybe by the middle of February. You'll definitely see it blooming by the middle of March. Depends on how warm it gets. Last year we saw Laura Petalum blooming all over Raleigh in January because it got so warm. But this one needs to be pruned some. I've let it get a little taller than I want it to get back here, but I'll bring it down after it flowers. But that's a Laura Petalum, or a Chinese fringe flower. Okay, somebody asked me, they were looking for a zone 6 conifer to put as a screen, and then saw my Leyland Cypress video and decided not to go with Leyland Cypress, which is probably a pretty good call because they're pretty short-lived in most situations. They're beautiful. There's some of them that are very old and beautiful, and that video's interesting because at the end of that Leyland Cypress video, I gave all the reasons that I wouldn't put them in, because I've seen the amount of them that fall down from ice and wind and storms and everything. But that video also has a lot of negative pushback because there are a lot of people that love Leyland Cypress and have great ones, and they haven't had a problem yet. But they wanted to know what would be a good replacement in zone 6. And junipers are always a good choice and kind of get underused, really, like blue point junipers or Hetzi junipers, are tall and narrow like that. If you want something that really gets enormous, like a Leyland Cypress, of course you can use green giant arborvitae. Most people don't really need something that gets 40 or 50 feet. And a lot of times on those 40 and 50 foot growing conifers, they end up very thin at the bottom. And so if you're trying to get a screen out of something and the bottom 6 or 8 feet of it, you can see right through it, it's kind of worthless. The good screening part's 20 feet up. So it's like a screening plant for 20 foot tall people, but not a great one for 6 foot people. Again, I definitely lean toward junipers just because they're more cold hardy. You can use Hinoki cypress, regular Hinoki cypress, not dwarf Hinoki cypress. You can use golden Hinoki cypress. Comes to mind, like I said, green giant. Did I write emerald arborvitae, of course, or DeGroote's arborvitae. DeGroote's is one of my favorites. Seems to actually be more hardy somehow than emerald. But any of those would be good choices. And there's probably an extension agent in your county may be able to give you another list as well of things that will do well in your area, or go to a botanical garden or an arboretum that's in your zone, in your area, and look through their collection and see if there's something you like as well. Is always a good call. Let's see. Somebody had some camellias that were badly deer damaged. They were eaten down to just where there's like 2-3 leaves on this branch, 1-2 leaves on that branch. They wanted to know if they should prune off the remaining leaves. And anytime you get damage, let's say you've overwatered something, or you vastly underwatered it, and it's lost leaves, or a deer has eaten it, whatever damage you get on a plant, I always kind of say freeze in place. Don't do anything. It's the moment where the less is more. Let the plant kind of start to recover on its own. Fertilize it in the late winter. I fertilize everything in this yard. You'll see it on the channel, probably February 15th, maybe March 1st. I'll fertilize every plant in this yard. That's all I'm going to fertilize them. I think things just in general get over fertilized and over pushed. But when you have a damaged plant, that's the moment to do nothing rather than more. Obviously, if it's damaged from being too wet, you'd want to raise it up. You'd want to change the conditions, because obviously, the water would continue to damage it. So I wouldn't do nothing in that case. But if it was underwatered and just lost a lot of leaves because you forgot to water it for, the first month it was in the ground for whatever reason, water it at that point, but don't go crazy. Like I say, less is more when something's damaged. Leave it alone, fertilize it in the late winter. If the deer are going to come back to it, you might move it, but I might wait to move it until it's starting to show some signs of new growth. Doubling down on the stress on something is probably not the best call. Okay. Somebody asked me if I do hardwood cuttings for plant propagation. And I did when I had the nursery. We had bottom heat in part of our greenhouse, and we did lots of hardwood cuttings. Figs were great for hardwood cuttings in the wintertime. There was a lot of things that were just honestly easier to do hardwood cuttings on. Nandinas are actually easier to do hardwood cuttings on in December. I did all my firepower Nandinas about this time, right after Christmas, every year. So yes, I did. And then they asked me if I plant bare root trees. I never order bare root trees for my yard. I did for the nursery. We would get in from Tennessee, does a lot of field grown. The nurseries in Tennessee do a lot of field grown material and ship it out bare root. So I would get bare root shrubs, and a lot of deciduous flowering shrubs are grown in Tennessee and sent bare root to nurseries. A lot of hydrangeas and then tons of flowering trees. Almost every one of these red buds, like this weeping red bud I have in my yard, it went to the nursery that I bought it from as a bare root tree for sure. So I never ordered any for my yard, but yes, I've ordered them at the nursery for years. And I don't like to plant bare root stuff directly in the ground. I like to put them in containers, get a little bit of new roots on them, and then I put them in the ground. So that's just the way I like to do it. Somebody asked me if I like metal edging or stone edging, and I think they're talking about between their turf and a bed. And for that, I don't like either one of them. I wouldn't mind a stone edging that was flat, where I could ride the wheel of the lawnmower on. I don't mind that, but I don't like to put barriers against lawn that make me have to weed eat. Now, some people have Bermuda grass and they need some sort of physical barrier because Bermuda grass can grow over it so quickly. So I would understand that, but I don't like to. I feel like it creates maintenance. I like stone walls and I don't mind metal edging, but I don't use them between lawn and beds. I use them in the beds for some sort of barrier within the beds. But for turf edging, unless you have Bermuda grass, if you were going to use a stone border or a stone edging, I would put it almost flush with the ground so your lawnmower wheel can go over it. But I trench edge everything. And I have videos on my channel for edging if you want to go back and learn how to trench edge. And I did some trench edge teaching on the videos for this channel this year. So my weekly landscape updates, probably from back in February or so, I taught some trench edging for this bed if you want to go back and look at those videos. Somebody bought, this is a good question, because they bought Ligustrum in South Carolina and they live in Asheville, North Carolina, and wanted to know if they should go ahead and put it in the ground. It's completely up to whether or not it has new growth on it or not. So if you go somewhere south and you buy a plant and you bring it home in the wintertime, there's some possibility it's still got some new growth on it. And then you're going to take it to a much colder area and plant it. So if it's got a lot of new growth on it, I would protect it for the winter, keep it from freezing, and not plant it. If it was kind of going dormant, Just put it in the ground. It's better off in the ground, really, than it is out and about. Ligustrum's probably not going to get hurt regardless, even if it got the new growth damaged on it. So I'm really answering this question more from in general. I don't want to plant plants in the wintertime that have new growth on them, because you're definitely inviting them to get damaged. A couple more here. Somebody said something about, do I mind people answering questions in the comment section on the videos? And no, not at all. The only concern that I have is sometimes I see people recommending nutrients or recommending soil chemistry changes, that's what I'll call it, without telling the person they need to get a soil test. It really annoys me. Not people commenting, but just in general, it annoys me. I've had a video on my video list for a long time, and I'm going to pull the trigger on it at some point. Just basically calling out the disinformation on YouTube and on other places about people telling people, to use Epsom salts or gypsum or, all of these things that change soil chemistry without at first saying, based on a soil test, this will do this, this, or this. They never say that. People, I saw an Epsom salt video with, there's videos for Epsom salts that have hundreds of thousands of views, and it's complete nonsense. It's magnesium sulfate. If your soil needs magnesium, it's helpful. If it doesn't, it's not helpful. It can be damaging. So if you're just answering a question about a plant, of course, please do. Let's don't recommend things to people to change their soil chemistry without saying, based on a soil test, this will be helpful. But I am going to pull the trigger on that video, maybe in January or February, and just kind of call out some of that stuff that I see. It's called soil science for a reason, not soil my grandma did this, so it must work great for everybody. So anyway, thanks guys for participating in these question and answer videos, and ask questions down below. And I think it'll be 2 Sundays from now I'll do the next question and answer, and this one, like I say, is Subscriber Sunday photos. Thanks for following along.